this is pretty much just a follow-up video from my last, because I didn't want to make a really big long one video. So this is just pretty much jobs and basic training. I went to basic training over a year ago, so I'm trying to remember all of them, but if I forgot one, just comment down below and I'll try to explain it to the best of my abilities. So dorm chiefs and element leader, I'm pretty much just going to group them into one. Your dorm chief is obviously over your element leaders, but in the end of the day, in order for a flight to work together, all you guys are pretty much equal. Obviously they have more responsibilities, and the MTI is going to get down on your dorm chief more and your element leaders, but as long as you work cohesive as a flight, you guys should be fine. You don't want to be a dorm leader or an element leader who takes that a little bit too much to their head, because then people aren't going to listen to you. They're not going to respect you. Everyone's just going to be like, oh hey, they think they're top dog, blah blah blah. You do have a lot of responsibilities and you are held to a higher standard, but you pretty much are a reflection of your flight. Your flight is a reflection of you, just like your flight is a reflection of your MTIs. So if your MTI has any problems, they're obviously going to come to you, let you know. You're going to let your element leaders know. Usually they group the element leaders and the dorm chief together, and they all talk about things. If you have an issue, element leaders, it's kind of like a chain of command. You go to your element leaders, your dorm chief. Your dorm chief, if we can't figure it out at our level, then if it's a big enough deal, we'll go and talk to the MTIs. I personally was not an element leader or dorm chief. For me, yeah, it's not a responsibility I wanted at all. I just feel like there's a lot of, like, it's either people are gonna love you, they're gonna hate you, or you're gonna be stuck in between. In these roles, you just have to remember that at the end of the day, we're all in basic training together. You are not higher ranking than the other person. You are not this. We have no ranks. We're all, no matter if you went in with a freaking E3 contract, E2 contract, we're all airman basics until we will walk around, until we get coined, or you walk across that parade field. And like I said, I did go to BMT pre-COVID, so it's a little bit different. I don't know if everything's gonna be the same, but for the most part, the job should stay the same. After those two, you have your EC monitor. Don't apply for this job. I was EC monitor all of BMT, and I will honestly say, some people, it's really easy, like, oh yeah, I get to make the schedule, I know when I'm working, I can give myself the good shifts. Yeah, that is a perk of EC monitors, but people will start to see that, oh, this person didn't work this person didn't work that, or oh, you're not scheduled for this. In my BMT flight, my MTI had like certain rules, like the dorm chief could only work a shift if they wanted to. Element leaders could not work in the mornings because the MTI needed them. And I had a smaller flight. I think the most people we ever had on a flight was maybe 47. By the time we graduated, there was only like 43 of us. So it's hard making a schedule with that many people. And then our guide on bears and A-flight guide on bear could only work like at night, because during the day they always needed to be with the flight so we could practice drill and things like that. So scheduling people around that was a little bit hard, I'm not gonna lie. It was kind of annoying. And then some people would be like, oh, I already worked shift, or my number, because it goes by bed numbers, is on there twice, but they would be scheduled when we were in class, so technically they didn't really work a shift, but we still had to write down somebody at that time. So I would write their number here, and then I'd write it again down here, because technically they never worked that shift. And I remember the first like 2 weeks, people were like arguing about EC, and I'd be knocked out. Like, it was always when I was sleeping so good and people would wake me up and ask me questions about EC, or say, hey, I can't work this shift, or this and that. And it was honestly like really frustrating to sometimes, because I would try my hardest to make it fair for everybody. Sometimes I would just wake up and take the shift because I didn't want to hear anybody complain. But I'm not gonna lie, there is some perks. Like, honestly, when some people made me mad, I'm not gonna lie, I gave them the shitty shifts. That was just it. I mean, it sounds messed up, but that's just the reality of it. And I would try really bad to like schedule people with people they liked, so that way they wouldn't complain about having to work or having to wake up at 1 o'clock in the morning, 4 o'clock in the morning to work a shift. So that's one thing I would definitely say take away from this, is if you are EC monitor, schedule people with who they like. Obviously it's not going to work out every single time, so people can work with other people, but they're more likely wanting to do it and not going to complain as much if they have a friend. Second thing with EC, also, don't schedule people for the same shifts over and over. Like if this person had a two to, was it every 2 hours? Yeah, 2 to 4 in the morning shift. Don't schedule them for that like day in, day out. What my MTI always made me do was they couldn't work 2 night shifts in a row, or they couldn't work a shift within a 24-hour period. So not all flights are going to be like this, but I'm telling you, my MTI was so picky about this, and it made everything harder. So it might be easier, but that's just what I take away from it. It's not the worst, it's not the best, but it does sometimes suck. And at first I was just the backup EC monitor, but the regular EC monitor got fired like the first week. I love her to death, but she got fired, and I was trying so hard. The whole entire BMT, I was trying to get fired, and I could not step down because nobody else wanted it. I was trying so hard, but I never did, and I was kind of sad about that. After that, honestly, I'll just go into Chow Runner. I give them so much props. I did all these jobs besides Chow Runner and Dorm Chief and Element Leader, but like all the regular jobs, I give Chow Runners the benefit of the doubt. Obviously, they'll pick on the quiet people, or I think for my flight, he goes, who's good at remembering things? And people raised their hands, and it wasn't my guy MTI, it was actually my girl MTI. She handed them the papers and said, okay, remember this, you're gonna try it out tonight. And so I think they handed it to like 6 people, and within the first couple of days, they were like testing everybody out and made them report in. I think it starts off with like, if I can remember correctly, it's like, sir, ma'am, flight blah 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 is prepared to enter the dining facility from the west side, because that's where we were. And then they say, okay, bring them in and seat them, or it's just bring them in. Whatever the MTI said is what you would repeat back to them, pretty much. And then once you go out, you tell your flight, like, flight minus flight 818, prepared to enter the dining facility from the west side. And I forgot what we shouted back. Yeah, I don't remember. But then they would report back in, they would say, like, sir, ma'am, flight 818 has entered the dining facility from the west side, and he'd be like, go seat them, or something along those lines. And honestly, Chow Runner, from the people I talked to, they didn't say it was that bad. Like, it's scary at first, but obviously, like everything is scary at first, but a lot of people liked it. One of my element leaders in the later weeks, she would go in there and she would report in, and our MTI would be like, what are you doing up here? But at the end of the day, almost my whole flight was a Chow Runner. They would say, Carter, go do it. Carter, we need somebody. I was not doing that. But honestly, at the end of the day, it's really not that bad, from what they said. They got into a groove of it, and they ended up liking it. Some people really actually enjoyed it, so there's that. Latrine crew. I think out of all these jobs, latrine crew and laundry crew have it the hardest. Latrine crew, I feel like it's hard because everything you do, like when we get like dorm inspections, we always fail latrine until like our 3rd inspection, because like people push the doors open with your hands and it leaves a fingerprint, or if there was a hair on the sink or hair on the floor. And honestly, the buildings are old. I mean, I was still in Disneyland, but at the same time, they're old. It's gonna be hard to get some of the scruff off the floors. Oh, we always got in trouble for leaving the seats down. So after you do your business, you're supposed to put the seat back up. We would get marked down for that because somebody would forget. It was just, it's hard. You do the mirrors. They would look at the vents, the sinks, the handles for the sinks, the dust on top of the paper towel pusher, the showers. Make sure the chrome on the showers didn't have any like watermarks on it. Just little things like that. And then there's 40 something girls, 50 girls, and sometimes in a flight, or vice versa for guys. It's hard to keep it up. So as soon as someone would clean it, someone would go in and it's like, dang, I just cleaned that. Next going in is like laundry crew. I give our laundry crew mad props because she was our laundry chief. She was always doing laundry. Like, she gave up her Sundays to do laundry all day. And as an EC monitor, I would give up my Sundays too, because everybody wanted to go to service, but our MTI said somebody had to be in the room at all times, and everybody needs a wingman. So I would stay back too, and I would just work the shifts until people came back. But your laundry crew, they're in charge of not only doing our laundries, but also making sure the laundry room is kept clean. And sometimes that can be hard too. They take a lot of like crap from people when we're like, oh, I ran out of this, I ran out of that, can we do laundry? But we weren't allowed to have laundry running at night, obviously. We couldn't do laundry if we were in class, because we weren't allowed to leave anything in the washer or dryers. So doing it while we were in class, like watching a video, or our MTIs were going over something in the day room, yeah, we'd have laundry running. And then getting it passed out, my flight took the longest to figure out Latrine, or figuring out a way that would like get us all our laundry without people complaining. That's why I definitely recommended bring extra underwear, bring extra Spanx, bring a whole lot of sports bras, because it like makes a big difference, and your laundry crew isn't as stressed or always having to do something for you guys. I give them props. And our MTI would go and look at the vents of the washers and dryers and make sure they're clean. They would be in there with their toothbrushes. Well, obviously they had like dedicated toothbrushes for this. Cleaning it out, wiping everything down, making sure there's no hair in the washers or dryers. We'd get marked down if there's any scent of lint at all. And we also kept like other things in there for like other crews, like obviously like the brooms and stuff like that. Oh, our laundry chief, she would stop everybody and say, what do you need? Because they were cleaning as we were also doing our other details. So that's extremely important too. And day room crew, honestly, day room crew really don't do nothing. Yeah, they clean the day room and they make sure like the sofa or like the chairs and everything that we're not allowed to touch stay aligned and there's no dust. But at the end of the day, most of my day room crew just messes around, like, yeah. Bed aligners, shoe aligners, also again, you're really not doing anything. Bed aligners, it is hard, because if you look at one end, you can see kind of the beds like swooping, and they have to be a certain inches away and feet away and how they have to. But in order to shoe align, you have to make sure the beds are aligned. And if your bed aligners take a long time, it's going to take a little bit longer for your shoe aligners, because if they're moving beds, you can't align the shoes, and they all have to be like flushed with the end and everything. Heels touching, flushed with the end. So definitely those two jobs have to work together. They're not hard, but they're just tedious. And if someone like kicks a shoe while you're aligning shoes, that's annoying too, because that was also my job. Hallway crew, obviously it's not even the hall, I mean, yeah, it's the hallways in our dorms, and like where the sink, they also like the water fountains. If you're in like Disneyland, they're in charge of like that rug that steps on there. So literally you'll hear everyone say, don't step on the rug, because they would take lint rollers and lint roll the rugs and make sure nothing was in it. They were also in charge of making sure like the water fountains didn't have any watermarks. One thing I will say is don't forget the little fire alarm, like the little red fire detectors, like the alarms that go off. Dust on top of that, because our MTI one time, he was a really tall guy, went like this, and he was like, there's dust, that's a demerit. But other than that, they clean that. They clean the hallway leading to the MTI office, make sure you clean the EC stand, like there's no dust underneath it, like the little podium. They'd go out and clean our hallways in front of our dorms. And also, I don't think it was them, but our same hallway crew was pad crew, so they'd go down and like clean the patio area or beat the rug. Honestly, they really didn't do much. They would walk down there, look busy. Easy job. Academic monitor, this is usually picked out by your MTIs. I don't know if it was all for all flights, but at least for mine, my MTI picked the person. And she didn't really have a hard job. When we were waiting for Chow or waiting for something to do, it would be like, oh, academic monitor, ask the flight a question. And she'd just ask a question and pick on a random person. And it was just pretty much to make sure we were ready for the EOC. It wasn't that hard of a job. She would make like Jeopardy games or something just for us to play. It was kind of cool. You have your guide on bear and your A-flight guide. When you get there, you'll obviously know. If you're good at marching, try out for that job. If you're not good at marching, don't do it. My guide on bear, she did Roxy, or like J Roxy I think it was, and she was spot on. Like, she got a lot of compliments from MTIs and things like that. She could march, and she was really good. Pretty much they guide our flight. It's kind of hard, especially when you first get there, and you're not going off on like column half left, column half right. So like your MTI will be like, okay, guide on bear, guide 90 degrees to the right, guide 45 degrees to the right, like things like that, until we learn like column half right, column left right. Yeah, I'm not the one to talk about marching because I'm not very good at it. Fire monitors, that honestly wasn't that bad. They would just say like, oh, prepare to enter the dining facility, element 3, prepare to enter the dining facility, and so on. And they held the door open because we weren't supposed to touch the door. You'd wash your hands, open the door, and you'd walk in. They'd also make sure the trash was taken out every night, every morning. And then water monitors. Yeah, we didn't ever really yell about hydrate. My MTI hated when we called out hydrate. He was like, I don't need to tell you guys to hydrate. If you need to hydrate, hydrate. So yeah, he'd make fun of cousin flight, brother flight when they would say it, and he'd look at us and he'd be like, don't say it. But when it came to Chow, they were pretty much the people you'd put on your cap and you'd go and you just fill up the waters for the drinks until you were relieved for the next flight to do it. Oh, and also there's like beast monitor and like, I don't know what the element leaders for, they're like squad leaders or something like that, for beast. I don't know if that's really still a thing now that like COVID and beast is only like 2 or 3 days, but they're pretty much essential. They're just like your dorm chief and chow runner, your dorm chief and element leaders during beast week. But yeah, if you guys have any questions, I'm sorry, I tried making this fast. Yeah, just comment down below.